I was sitting in my small apartment, wrapping gifts for my patients at the hospital, when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. At first, I smiled. She rarely called unless it was about family gathering. But as soon as I picked up, her tone told me something was off. She started with small talk, asking if I was working during Christmas, then quickly said, "Honey, we decided not to do a big family Christmas this year. It'll just be close relatives at Emily's engagement dinner." I froze. Close relatives? I was her daughter, my sister Emily's older sister. But before I could say anything, she added softly, "We just don't want any tension. You know how things get when you and your father are in the same room." Her words hit harder than I expected. I had arguments with Dad before, sure, but being excluded completely? That hurt. I bit my lip, holding back tears. "So, you're saying I shouldn't come?" I asked. She hesitated for a second, then said, "It's better this way, sweetheart." And that was that. The next day, I got another call, this time from my dad. I thought maybe he'd changed his mind, but he jumped straight to the point. "Listen, Emily's fiancé is planning something big for her engagement gift. We're all pitching in. Your share would be $17,500. Can you wire it this week?" For a few seconds, I couldn't even speak. I wasn't invited to Christmas. I wasn't welcome at the table. Yet somehow, they wanted me to pay for a gift I'd never even see her open. "You're serious?" I finally asked. "Olivia, don't start," he said sharply. "You're single, no kids. You make more than all of us. It's only fair." Fair. That word echoed in my head long after he hung up. Fair was me working double shifts to pay off Mom's medical bills. Fair was me helping Ryan, my brother, with his tuition. Fair was buying Emily her first car when she couldn't afford one. I had done everything for them. And now, I wasn't even worth a chair at the table. That night, I sat in silence, staring at my half-decorated tree. The lights blinked cheerful and bright, but all I felt was cold. I replayed every family memory in my head. Every time they leaned on me, every time I said yes when I should have said no. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about respect. And I finally realized I had none in their eyes. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for a seat at their Christmas. Instead, I started to think clearly about what I had given and what I had received. About how love shouldn't come with a price tag. That night, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would stop paying for people who never saw my worth. And maybe this Christmas, the best gift I could give myself was finally walking away. A few days after my dad's call, I found out what the money was really for. My younger sister, Emily, was getting engaged on Christmas night. The whole family had planned a surprise engagement dinner at a fancy restaurant in Denver. Everyone was going to be there. My parents, my brother Ryan, even my cousins from out of state. Everyone except me. I heard about it from my aunt, who accidentally mentioned it on the phone. She said, "Oh honey, I can't wait to see Emily's face when she realizes what's happening." My heart dropped. I had no idea there was an event happening. I pretended I already knew, forcing a small laugh to hide the lump in my throat. When I hung up, I sat quietly for a while, feeling that same ache from before, that sting of being left out of something that should have included me. 2 days later, my mom called again. Her tone was cheerful, like nothing was wrong. "Sweetheart, could you please transfer $17,500 by tomorrow?" she said casually. "It's for Emily's engagement gift. We're all pooling money together for something special." I stayed silent for a moment. "What exactly am I paying for?" I finally asked. She replied, "A designer honeymoon package. Her fiancé really wants to surprise her, and everyone's contributing." I felt my chest tighten. Everyone, or just me, because I knew how this family worked. My dad probably gave a few hundred, my brother maybe less. Somehow, I was always the one expected to fill the gap, to make it all look grand and generous. I asked quietly, "Why should I pay that much when I'm not even invited?" There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Olivia, please don't make this difficult. You know how Emily gets. It's her special day. Don't ruin it by bringing up old issues." Old issues. That's what she called the years of me being the one they leaned on, the one they forgot to include unless money was involved. I wanted to scream, to ask her if she had any idea how much it hurt. But I didn't. I just said, "I'll think about it," and hung up. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone. My hands were shaking, not from anger this time, but from disappointment. It was like I was finally seeing my family clearly. They didn't call because they missed me. They called because they needed something. Every word, every fake kindness, every "we love you," always had a price behind it. And this time, the price was $17,500. I realized I wasn't invited because my presence made them uncomfortable, not because of any fight, but because deep down, they knew I was the mirror they didn't want to look into. I reminded them of how selfish they'd become. That night, I opened my laptop, looked at my savings account, and for the first time in years, I closed it without sending a dime. This time, Emily's happiness wasn't my responsibility. When I finally called my dad to ask about everything, I wasn't angry at first, just confused. I needed to hear it from him directly, hoping maybe Mom had gotten it wrong. But when he answered, his voice was cold and sharp, like he'd been waiting for this conversation. "Dad," I started carefully. "Why am I not invited to Emily's engagement party but still expected to pay for it?" He didn't even hesitate. "Because it's not about you, Olivia," he said flatly. "You always make things tense. We just want Emily to have a smooth night." Those words hit me like a slap. "So I make things tense," I repeated slowly. "But my money doesn't?" He sighed, clearly annoyed. "Don't start. You're single, you don't have kids, and you make good money. It's only fair that you help your sister start her life." For a moment, I just stood there, phone pressed to my ear, completely silent. Fair. That same word again. Fair that I was left out. Fair that I was only good enough for my bank account. I could hear plates clinking in the background, people laughing. My family was probably sitting together, planning a night I wasn't part of, yet still counting on my money to make it perfect. "Dad," I said softly, "do you even hear yourself?" He didn't answer. After a few seconds, he said, "Look, Olivia, not everything has to be about feelings. Sometimes family just helps each other. You know that." I swallowed hard, trying not to let him hear the tremor in my voice. "I've been helping for years, Dad," I said. "When's the last time anyone helped me?" He stayed silent for a moment before finally muttering, "Don't be dramatic." Then he hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, my heart racing. I wasn't dramatic, I was done. That one sentence, that careless tone, broke something inside me that I didn't even know was fragile. I realized at that moment that I wasn't part of the family. I was their safety net. Someone they could depend on without ever inviting into their joy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words in my head. "You're single, no kids, you make good money." As if that made me less human. As if because I had a stable job, I didn't deserve kindness or inclusion. I thought back to every time I'd bailed them out. The hospital bills, Ryan's tuition, Emily's first car. Every time I said yes, thinking I was being a good daughter. But now it all felt like a joke. I realized that my family didn't see me as a person with feeling. They saw me as a solution, a resource, a wallet, and that hurt more than being excluded from any party ever could. When the clock hit midnight, I turned off my phone, shut off the lights, and sat in silence. I told myself quietly, no more, because something inside me had finally cracked, and I knew once it broke, there was no going back. Growing up, I was always the one everyone could depend on. When Ryan struggled to pay for college, I took an extra shift at the hospital and sent him money every month. When Mom had her surgery, I covered what insurance didn't. When Emily wanted her first car, I gave her the down payment as a birthday surprise. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because I believed that's what family was supposed to do, be there for each other. But the truth was, they were only there when they needed something. When I went through the hardest time of my life, they disappeared. 2 years ago, I lost my fiancé, Daniel, in a car accident. He was driving home after a late shift when a drunk driver ran a red light. I remember getting the call at work, my world collapsing in an instant. Everything after that felt like a blur. The funeral, the silence, the loneliness. I waited for my family to show up, to hold me, to tell me it was going to be okay. Instead, my mom told me, "Sweetheart, you're young. You'll find someone else." My dad said, "Crying won't bring him back, Olivia. You should focus on work." Even Emily, who I'd treated like my own child growing up, avoided me completely because, as she said, "I don't know what to say to you." I learned to grieve alone. Every night, I'd sit in Daniel's old sweatshirt, listening to the sound of the wind outside and pretending it was his voice. My coworkers checked on me more than my family did. Slowly, I picked myself up, not because I wanted to, but because I had no one else to lean on. So when they excluded me from Christmas, it wasn't just about missing one dinner. It was about everything that had built up for years. All the times I gave and they took. All the times I broke and they turned away. Hearing them tell me I made things tense felt like they were rewriting the story. I wasn't the problem. I was just the one who finally stopped pretending everything was fine. That Christmas betrayal wasn't a surprise. It was confirmation. It showed me that my worth to them had always been measured in dollars. The moment I couldn't buy their happiness or keep quiet, I became inconvenient. As I sat alone in my apartment, I looked around at the small reminders of my old life. The framed photo of Daniel and me, the small Christmas tree we had once decorated together, still packed away in the corner. I felt a tear roll down, not because I missed my family, but because I realized how long I'd been holding on to a version of them that never really existed. This time, the pain felt different, quieter but deeper. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was awakening. And even though it hurt, I knew I was finally starting to see the truth. After days of silence, I finally called my mom back. My voice was calm, steady. I told her I would take care of the money for Emily's gift. She sounded relieved, almost cheerful again, and thanked me like nothing had happened. "I knew you'd come through, honey," she said. I smiled faintly, but this time it wasn't out of love. It was because I knew something she didn't. I wasn't going to send them money. I was going to send them a message. That night, I opened my laptop and began digging through my old emails and bank statement. Every transfer, every expense, every single time I had sent money to my family was right there in black and white. It went back years. I scrolled through one payment after another. The $8,000 for Ryan's tuition, the $2,300 for Mom's surgery bill, $5,000 for Emily's first car, $1,500 for Dad's credit card emergency. The list felt endless. With each receipt I opened, the memories returned, moments when they had called me crying or begging for help. I had always dropped everything to fix things, thinking that's what love looked like. But now, seeing it all laid out, it felt different. It looked like proof that I had been giving pieces of myself to people who only saw me as a source of convenience. I spent hours compiling the list. I made a spreadsheet, carefully adding every amount, every date, every short message they had sent when asking for help. By the time I was done, it totaled more than $86,000. My hands trembled as I printed it all, page after page of cold, hard truth. Then I did something I'd never done before. I put everything in order, from the first payment I ever made for them to the most recent. On the last page, I wrote a single sentence in the middle of the sheet. "This is my contribution to the family's happiness, every dollar I've already given." I placed all the papers neatly in a folder, then wrapped it carefully in a silver box I found in my closet. I even tied it with a red ribbon, just like a real gift. It almost made me laugh, the irony of giving them something that finally showed the truth. As I looked at the box sitting on my table, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt calm, like I had finally taken control of something that had been controlling me for years. This wasn't revenge for money or missed dinners. It was about finally being seen, even if it was in the most uncomfortable way possible. Before I went to bed, I added a small card on top of the box that said, "For the family." It looked simple, but I knew what was inside would shake everything they thought they knew about me. I turned off the lights and whispered to myself, "Let them open this one together." Christmas Eve came faster than I expected. The city was glowing with lights, snow gently falling over the streets, and people rushing around with gifts in their hand. I sat in my apartment, looking at the silver-wrapped box on my table. It looked elegant, almost festive. No one would ever guess what was inside. My heart was steady. I wasn't nervous, not even sad anymore. Just done. I had arranged for the box to be delivered directly to the restaurant where my family was holding Emily's engagement dinner. I knew exactly what time the event started, because my aunt had mentioned it earlier that I didn't need to be there to imagine it. The music, the laughter, the glasses clinking, the fake smile. They probably hadn't even noticed my absence yet. They were too busy celebrating, too sure I'd done my part as always. Around 7 that evening, I got a notification from the courier service confirming the package had been delivered. For a moment, I stared at the screen, thinking about what was happening at that exact moment. I could picture Emily's excited face when the box was handed to her. She'd assume it was a last-minute surprise gift from maybe jewelry, maybe money. I almost smiled at the thought. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the snow fall. I imagined the room going quiet when she opened the lid and found a folder instead of an envelope full of cash. I could see her pulling out the papers, the confusion on her face turning to shock as she read line after line, each one showing how much I had paid for every family emergency and favor. And then she'd reach the last page, the one that mattered most. My handwriting was clear, calm, and simple. "Here's my contribution to the family's happiness. Every cent I've already given." That single line said everything I never got to say in words. I didn't need to be there to see their faces. I could already imagine the silence spreading around the table, the forced smiles fading, the discomfort growing heavier by the second. My mom would probably gasp and try to defend herself. Dad would get angry, and Ryan, he'd just sit there, quiet, realizing the truth. Emily would feel humiliated, not because of what was written, but because the world she built on pretending had just cracked in front of everyone. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the forgotten one. I felt free. I didn't send that box to hurt them. I sent it to remind them that love isn't a one-way street. I wanted them to finally see that all the giving, all the support, all the sacrifices, they came from someone who never asked for anything in return. As the night went on, I turned off my phone and watched the snow keep falling. The world outside was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, so was I. At the restaurant that night, everyone was dressed up, smiling, and pretending to be the perfect family. Emily sat in the center of the table, glowing with excitement. The place was decorated beautifully, white roses, golden candles, and soft music in the background. Her fiancé's parents were there too, elegant and polite, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. When the waiter brought the silver-wrapped box to the table, everyone turned to look. "Oh, it's from Olivia," the waiter said, reading the little card. For a second, the room went quiet, then Emily smiled nervously. "From Olivia? Wow, I didn't think she'd send anything," she said, trying to sound casual. My mom gave a tight smile, pretending everything was fine, and my dad crossed his arms like he was expecting something expensive inside. Emily untied the red ribbon and opened the box carefully. Inside was a simple white folder, not what anyone expected. She looked confused, then opened it. The first page was full of numbers, dates, amounts, and short notes beside each. Everyone leaned forward, trying to see what it was. "What is this?" Emily asked, flipping through the pages. My mom's face went pale. She knew exactly what she was looking at. My dad's jaw clenched as he realized each line was proof of every time I had paid for something they'd asked for. The restaurant fell completely silent. Even the music seemed to fade in the background. Emily's fiancé looked at the papers, his eyes widening. "She paid for your car? For your mom's surgery? For your brother's tuition?" he asked quietly. Emily's voice cracked. I didn't know she kept all this." My dad muttered, "This is unnecessary," but his voice sounded weak. Then Emily reached the last page. There, in the center, was the note I had written. "Here's my contribution to the family's happiness. Every cent I've already given." No one spoke. My mom looked down at her plate, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Emily's fiancé's parents exchanged awkward glances, realizing what kind of family drama they had just witnessed. My dad grabbed his phone immediately and stepped outside, calling me over and over again. I didn't answer. Inside the restaurant, the air was heavy. The truth was out in front of everyone, their greed, their selfishness, their fake kindness. My mom tried to explain, saying I had misunderstood things, but no one believed her. My aunt whispered something to her husband, and Ryan just sat still, staring at the folder like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Emily pushed the box away, her hands shaking. "She embarrassed me," she whispered. But deep down, she knew this wasn't about embarrassment. It was about exposure. For years, they had taken from me quietly, pretending it was love. Now everyone could see what it really was. My dad called again and again, but I let the phone ring. I didn't need to hear their excuses. That silence in the restaurant, that moment when they had to face the truth, was louder than anything they could ever say. The morning after the engagement dinner, my phone rang. It was Ryan. I hadn't spoken to him since the night before, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to. But curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. "Olivia," he said, his voice quieter than usual. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't realize." His words trailed off. I could hear the hesitation, the guilt weighing on him. "You didn't realize what?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "That you've been taken advantage of for years." Seeing that folder, seeing everything laid out like that, it opened my eyes. "Mom, Dad, even Emily, we've been so selfish, and we never appreciated everything you've done." I stayed silent. I had expected this, in a way. Ryan had always been the one I could count on to understand me, but hearing him admit it out loud still felt strained. "I know it must have felt like I'm on your side, but I never truly realized just how much you sacrificed for all of us," he continued. "You didn't deserve to be treated that way, Olivia. I'm sorry. I really am." I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and anger. Relief because at least someone finally admitted the truth. Anger because it shouldn't have taken a ledger of receipts to make him see it. "I appreciate that, Ryan," I said finally, "but I'm not ready to forgive anyone. Not yet." My voice was firm. "I didn't do this to hurt anyone, not Emily, not Mom or Dad, not even you. I did it to finally set myself free." There was a pause on the other end. "I understand," he said softly. I hope someday you can forgive us. We've been blind, Olivia. Blind to how much you've given, and blind to how little we've shown we care." I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking about everything. The years of giving, the nights of worry, the holidays spent fixing problems that weren't mine. I realized that setting myself free didn't mean I had to forgive them immediately. Freedom came from seeing the truth and accepting it, no matter how painful. "Thank you for saying that," I told him. I needed someone to finally see it. But I need time. I can't just pretend everything is okay. "I get it," he said. "I really do. And I'm here if you ever want to talk, or if you want us to do better." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "We'll see," I said softly. "Right now, I just need to focus on myself." We hung up, and I felt a strange calm settle over me. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't carrying their expectations, their guilt, or their selfishness. I was finally free to live my life without being anyone's safety net, free to choose my own happiness. And for the first time, Christmas didn't feel lonely. It felt like the beginning of something new. A week later, my phone buzzed with notifications. Normally, our family group chat was full of chatter, jokes, holiday plans, and sometimes argument. But this time it was completely silent. I scrolled through the messages, noticing that not a single word had been exchanged since the night of the engagement dinner. Even Mom and Dad hadn't posted anything. It felt peaceful in a way. Then a private message popped up from Emily. My heart sank a little. I knew what it would be about before even opening. The message read, "You embarrassed me." I stared at the screen for a long moment. I didn't feel the need to respond immediately. She probably thought she could guilt me into apologizing or explaining myself. But I knew that what I had done wasn't about embarrassment. It was about showing the truth. Finally, I typed back, "No, Emily. You embarrassed yourself the day you thought I was only good for my money." I hit send and put the phone down. I didn't wait for a reply because I didn't need one. The words said everything I wanted them to. For years, she had grown up believing that I would always cover for her mistakes, pay for her desires, and support her life without question. And for years, she had never once considered how that made me feel or what it cost me. When she read my message, I imagined her realizing for the first time that I wasn't just her bank account or a helper. I wasn't the girl who would quietly handle everything while she got all the attention and love. I had a life of my own, a past filled with sacrifices, and finally, I had the courage to stand up for myself. I didn't reply again, and the chat remained silent. I wasn't looking for arguments or apologies. I wasn't looking for validation from them. I was simply reclaiming my power, showing them that I had limits, that my kindness wasn't endless, and that respect was earned, not assumed. That week felt different. There was no guilt weighing me down, no desperate messages asking me to explain or forgive. Silence replaced the tension I had carried for so long. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe, like the heavy weight of being everyone's safety net had been. And as I went about my own life, I realized something important. It wasn't revenge in the cruel sense. It was clarity. It was finally showing them who I really was. Someone who gave because she wanted to, not because she was expected to. Emily might have felt embarrassed, but I felt liberated. And that realization, that I could finally take care of myself first, was the most satisfying gift I could have given this Christmas. For the first time in years, I wasn't just Olivia the giver. I was Olivia, and that was enough. Months passed, and life began to feel lighter. I stopped checking my family's messages, stopped worrying about their reactions, and focused on myself for the first time in years. Work kept me busy, and I filled my days with small joys, quiet mornings with coffee, long walks in the park, and evenings spent reading by the fireplace. Slowly, the anger and hurt started to fade, replaced by a calm I hadn't known in a long time. When Christmas approached again, I decided not to go through the motions I had for so many years. No awkward dinners, no forced smiles, no pretending to be grateful for being taken for granted. Instead, I rented a small cabin in the Rockies. It was modest but beautiful, surrounded by snow-covered pine trees, far from the chaos and expectations of my family. On the first night, I stepped outside and let the cold winter air fill my lungs. The snow was falling gently, blanketing the world in white. There was silence everywhere, except for the faint sound of the wind through the trees. For the first time in my life, I felt free to just exist without guilt. There were no demands, no questions, no judgments, only peace. Inside the cabin, I decorated a tiny tree with a few ornaments I had brought from home. It was simple, but it felt meaningful. I made myself a warm meal and sat by the fire, thinking about the year that had passed. I remembered the engagement dinner, the ledger, and the messages. I realized how much strength it had taken to finally stand up for myself and to walk away from people who had never truly valued me. As I watched the flames dance in the fireplace, I understood something important. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, care, and understanding. You can share the same last name with people, but if they don't treat you with kindness, then they aren't truly family in the way that matters. I had spent too long giving to people who didn't appreciate it, but now I had reclaimed my life. That Christmas, I laughed and cried quietly by myself, and it felt right. I thought about my past sacrifices, my losses, and my pain, and I felt proud that I had finally chosen myself. Walking away from my family's expectations, from their greed, and from their hypocrisy was the most powerful act I could have done. The snow fell steadily outside, the world was still, and I felt a deep, peaceful joy. I realized that sometimes the strongest revenge isn't yelling, arguing, or punishing. It's simply walking away and living your life fully on your own terms. That year, I didn't just survive Christmas. I owned it, and I finally understood what it meant to be free.